Alrighty, we are back with Catalyst by Lisa Beeson. Oh, I do feel like my voice is... It keeps disappearing on me. Hello, hello, hello. We are back with Catalyst by Lisa Beeson, Chapter 30. And look how close we are. Oh my gosh. So exciting. Ugh. And you don't even know. You don't even know. Things are about to get wild. I mean, things have been wild, right? But kind of steady wild. Things are about to get wild. Alright, here we go. Arya woke to the scent of stale jasmine perfume. Keeping her eyes closed, she pushed out her field of awareness and sensed that she was alone in the room. With a small sigh of relief that Naseth and his crew weren't anywhere around, she opened her eyes and was surprised to see that she wasn't in a dark, cramped cell or dungeon room like she expected. Instead, she was lying on a large, sumptuous bed amidst satin sheets and velvet covers in a luxurious room in hues of crimson, black, and gold. The expensive yet gaudy decor reminded her of pictures she'd seen of old-fashioned bordellos. Feeling satisfied that she wasn't in immediate danger, Ari had to somehow let go of the heartbreak of being ripped away from Cam at the last second, and her fears for the boy she had healed or any others that might have been punished in her proxy. She tried not to think of what might have happened to her during the unaccounted-for time while she'd been unconscious, or how she'd got into the champagne silk camisole and matching pajama shorts she was currently wearing. Some things were best let go and forgotten, or they'd break the brittle glue holding her together. Going back to focusing on her surroundings, she noticed that the windows were covered by heavy black velvet curtains, and the room was bathed in the soft light of antique lamps and wall sconces. Wondering what time of day or night it was, she eased out of the bed and silently slipped over to the nearest window, and cautiously swept the curtains apart to reveal wooden planks behind the modern, energy-efficient glass. She was in the plantation house. The look of neglect and decay on the outside had only been a facade for them to hide behind. Looking through the wood to the swamp beyond, crawling with life in the dim light of a cloudy dusk, she realized she was on the second floor of the backside of the centuries-old mansion. What had probably once been a beautiful sprawling estate, built on the backs of slaves, was now nothing more than a dismal quagmire, mirroring the malignant evil currently living within its walls. Letting her shield down, Ari was overwhelmed by the presence of so many shades, but they seemed to be mostly on the lower floor or down the hall somewhere away from her room. A bit relieved, she brought her shield back up and looked through the door to her left. She was pleased to see that it led to an overtly opulent private bathroom. She then looked through the closed double doors to her right and was surprised to see an adjoining sitting room. It had an overstuffed armchair and a chaise lounge in front of a television, a couple built-in bookcases filled with antique books, and a long wooden table with only 2 chairs, one at each end. They had imprisoned her in her own lavish suite. She was distrustful of all the privilege they were suddenly granting her. Everything has a price. She locked the double doors of her bedroom to make sure there would be no surprise visitors, and went to take a much-needed, long, hot shower. Oh, I better go see what's up with the coyotes. Okay. After she was absolutely the cleanest she could possibly make herself, she got out and wrapped herself up in one of the thick towels that were provided, and dried her hair with the other. They were the softest towels she had ever felt, and they smelled heavenly. Everything in this place was meant to please the senses, and she didn't know what to feel about that. Can't get the rasp out of my voice. One moment. We'll just have to go with that. Coming out of the steamy bathroom, Ari decided to see what was in the enormously robust Rococo armoire. Opening the door, she saw that the inside was filled with a whole wardrobe of clothes and undergarments. Too bad they all looked as though they belonged to a high-end call girl. After looking over every hanger and through every drawer and compartment, she contented herself with a pair of black leather pants that ended up being high waters, ending just above her ankle monitor, and a loose white cotton blouse, which was only somewhat see-through. The sleeves were a little short for her arms, so she rolled them up to her elbows and had to shake away the intrusive thought of how that was the way Cale wore his shirts. You will not take rolled up sleeves from me, Lothan Cale. Too many things have been taken away from her to let a sour memory turn her away from something so mundane. She flinched at the sudden sound coming from the sitting room. Letting out a deep, steady breath to get a hold of herself, Ari looked through the wall. She nearly wept at the sight of 4 non-shade inhabited humans laying out a veritable banquet of the most delicious food she had ever seen on the long dining table. A whole roasted chicken, a baked ham, a variety of steamed and raw vegetables, and almost every kind of southern comfort food you could hope for. Stomach growling and mouth watering, Ari managed to hold herself back until they were done and closed the doors behind them, before she burst into the sitting room and practically inhaled everything on the table. There were no thoughts of saving anything for later. She had learned her lesson in the cell. With the shades, nothing was promised, and everything could be taken away as easily as it was given. Take what you can, when you can. Ari had accustomed herself to running on little to no fuel for so long that it was strange and wonderful feeling to have a full tank again and feel completely recharged. Bad move, Shades. Bad move, Shades. You should have kept me weak. After draining the entire pitcher of water in one long chug and ignoring the dusty bottle of wine, Ari settled down in front of the television, eager for any news of what was happening in the world. Figuring out the satellite features easily enough, she was able to find a news channel, but had to endure the opinionated ramblings of pundits debating the merits of the different presidential candidates. The only one she recognized was the Louisiana senator from Alvaro's vision, and unsurprisingly, he was leading in the polls. John Shaw was young, handsome, witty, and said all the right things, and he was running against a bunch of blustering good old boys who were out of touch with the youth and minorities of the nation. That went on for about 10 minutes before they finally got to world news. Before they finally got to world events. Apparently, riots were breaking out all over the world over the limited supply of vaccines and antiviral drugs a pharmaceutical company called Alpha Associates was frugally doling out to select governments. They were claiming that they had to be fastidious with their dwindling supply due to so much demand. Joshua was right. Anaximander is picking and choosing who gets to live. Why isn't Mara stepping in to help if her people are so close to a cure? What the heck are they waiting for? The anchor went on to say that there were more cases of the Red Death virus cropping up in Texas, Arizona, and California, and spreading up the West Coast. The Red Cross was setting up makeshift hospitals to quarantine the infected, and everything was being done to try to contain the spread. When they showed clips of the president addressing the nation, promising that they are doing all they can to acquire enough of the drug to combat the virus, that led to clips of more pundits criticizing the president and stating how ineffectual he and his cabinet have been throughout this crisis. Then they announced that they were about to stream live from a world conference happening in Sweden, where a representative from Alpha Associates was about to speak. Once they switched to the live feed, Ari's heart dropped to her feet. Standing at the podium was a beautiful, buxom redhead, garnering the rapt attention of everyone in that room. Helena? The same woman who had made Ari up for Royce Kavanaugh's party back in New York, with the ability to charm anyone in her vicinity into being her adoring sycophant, was now the spokesperson for Anaximander's pharmaceutical company. Ari hadn't even thought about what might have happened to Helena after they left her behind at Royce's party, which only shoved the dagger of guilt further into her heart. The suits must have taken her during the confusion of the fire. Ari's heart ached. The caring, passionate woman she had met now had glassy, emotionless eyes, just like Zachary's had been when Cam saw him enter the building with the suits just before the fire. Anaximander had brainwashed Helena and was now using her to sway the world with her ability. Ari was so absorbed in watching Helena touting Anaximander's lies and propaganda that she was caught off guard at the sound of someone politely clearing his throat and her scalp starting to tingle. Ari's head snapped towards the sound as she swiftly stood ready to defend herself, when her breath caught in her throat. She had just gone from one bone-chilling shock to another. "Excuse me," said a smooth baritone voice coming from a handsome, light-skinned black man standing just inside her doorway. His hair was perfectly coiffed in the old-fashioned finger wave style, and he was dressed in a classic, well-tailored suit. This had to be the Jashar she had heard about. The only thing giving him away as a shade was the pitch-black nimbus surrounding him. His eyes were clear and bright. His skin held a lively vitality, and he exuded charm and class, and it horrified her. Putting everything together she had overheard from the Shades, Ari realized Shades weren't some aimless gang of deviants following behind one of their own strong enough to be considered the leader. They had their own organized society with echelons and hierarchies, which they could be promoted and demoted from. Judging by the quality and condition of this one's vessel, he was definitely one of the higher-ups. How many Shades like this one are roaming the world, running companies or leading countries? No one would ever suspect these vile demons parading as humans. This is so much worse than I thought. Ari quickly hid behind her poker face before she betrayed herself too much. The Shade must have caught the brief moment of terror in her eyes, because his mouth curled up into a knowing smile. "My name is Jashar," he said. "I hope you find your accommodations satisfactory. I made sure you had the best." Ari hadn't forgotten what Sazi told her the cell had been his brainchild. "I'll concede that it is much better than the previous accommodations you provided for me," she said, matching the level of his civilized vernacular, trying to sound as calm and confident as she possibly could. "I must apologize for the abhorrent conditions in which you were transported here. If I had known, the matter would have been rectified immediately," he said. Ari actually believed him, which put her even more on edge. This was a Shade, a very dangerous and powerful one at that. She shouldn't believe a word he said. "Yes, well, the damage is done," she said, subconsciously rubbing the new scars on her wrists. He nodded and gave her a look as if to say, "Yes, what's done is done, and don't forget that things could be so much worse." He glanced down at the exposed foot and ankle of her robotic leg. "Impressive machinery you have there," he said with a nod. "Not exactly standard issue. Who made it for you?" Ari only stared mutely in response. He was fishing for information, and there was no way she was going to reveal anything about the people she cared about. The Shades knew too much already. He grinned at her icy lack of response. "I assure you, I'm not as loathsome as you apparently think I am." Ari was done with fake pleasantries. This thing was not her generous host. He was a diaphanous demon imprisoning her, keeping her parents hostage, and blackmailing her into cooperating with whatever nefarious scheme they were planning. He was here to seduce her into compliance before Fett can present her to Nakar, according to what she'd overheard in the trunk. "No, I believe you are exactly as loathsome as I think you are. Your veneer of civility doesn't distract me from the fact that you stole that body you're wearing from its rightful owner. You ended that man's life just so you could wear his skin like that suit you have on. I know what you truly are, I saw it after I snapped the necks of your comrades. He contemplated her for a moment, the corner of his mouth curling up in amusement. You condemn me and my kind for taking bodies, yet in the same breath you boast about doing the same thing. So who is the one in the wrong, I wonder? It's not the same and you know it. Isn't it, though? He asked silkily. You see, good, evil, it's all a matter of perception. One man's hero is another's villain. One nation's freedom fighter is another's terrorist. Very few people ever believe their deeds are truly evil. Countless atrocities have been done in the name of gods, the greater good or good intentions. Do you think the priests of the Spanish Inquisition thought that what they were doing was evil as they tortured their innocent victims? No. To justify their actions, they made themselves believe that what they were doing was right. I clearly cannot speak as silkily as Jashar can as I stutter through this. They convinced themselves that they were saving souls and getting rid of those who opposed their established views of how the world should be. In truth, there is no true good and evil. There is only to what extent someone is willing to go to get what they want. Would you be willing to kill to save a life that mattered to you? Would you kill for what you believe is right? What was she willing to do to save her parents? Would it make her evil? She had declared many times that she would do anything to save her family. No, I'm good. She had to believe that, or she would be lost, which only served to prove Jashar's point. She refused to give in to his philosophy. There is good and evil. Her parents were everything that was good in the world, and what the shades do is evil. I didn't kill anyone when I snapped the necks of those bodies, because their true owners were already dead. Your kind doesn't die. You only flip from one victim to the next. I see, he said, contemplating her some more. What if I told you the man who originally inhabited this vessel was about to end his life? I found him about to jump off a bridge into the Mississippi. He didn't want it. He was throwing it away. So I granted his wish and relieved him of it. And it thrives with me. I take care of it and appreciate it. But it wasn't yours to take. And how the heck do you keep it from decaying like the others? If you saw an abused dog about to be abandoned like garbage on the side of the road, would you leave it to die and rot? Or would you take it in and give it the love and care it deserved? That's not a fair question. That's not even a true comparison. Of course I would take care of the dog, Ari said, but that's not how it happens with your kind. I saw those people before the shades who abducted me took over their bodies. They were drugged and defenseless. They weren't willingly giving up their lives. I admit my drug makes the transition easier, he conceded. But would it help you to know that we can't take a body from a soul who isn't willing to let it go? The vessels the lower castes pick from belong to tortured souls, whose greatest wish is to escape their miserable lives and finally be free. Lies, Ari insisted. They tried to possess my friend, and she was not suicidal. Did they succeed? No, she admitted. Exactly, he said with a smile, devoid of malice or cunning. Even though Ari didn't know what happened to make the possession unsuccessful, she had again proved Jasar's point for him. Gah, this guy is the devil. Changing subjects while the conversation was in his favor, Jasar glanced down at the dining table. I'm glad to see you enjoyed the food, he said, sounding absolutely genuine, though I'm surprised you were able to finish so quickly. I was hoping to join you. That's what happens when you starve someone, Ari said, her voice dripping with ice. They tend to get a bit hungry. A bit, yes, he said with a slight smirk as he looked over at ravished remains of the feast. You didn't want the Merlot? He asked as he went over to the untouched wine bottle. It is an excellent vintage from one of my favorite vineyards. I don't drink, Ari replied, and caught herself before she said that she was only 14, because it wasn't true anymore. Not that it mattered. She'd never lower her defenses by drinking around him anyway. A pity, Jashar said with a slight shrug of his shoulders. He rested his cane, which obviously only served for aesthetic purposes, up against the table. Ari's eyes immediately went to the silver handle, which was unmistakably the head of a snake with garnet gems for the eyes. A serpent with red eyes. Jashar took the corkscrew from the table to open the bottle, and then poured himself a glass of the plum-colored wine. I've found that nothing corrupts faster than completely abstaining from the things that tempt us most. He swirled the wine around the glass once, then sniffed the bouquet before taking a sip. He pulled out a chair to sit down. Every move was purposeful and controlled, emanating strength and confidence. Denying the want only forces it to become a cancer that eats the person away from the inside, until they become the very thing they fear. A chill ran down Ari's spine, but she hit it well. Well, if the thing that tempts me most is reprehensible and puts everyone around me in danger. Good thing wine doesn't tempt me then, she said instead. Jashar smiled. Perhaps not, but everyone is tempted by something. I will never be tempted by a shade. His lip lifted in an almost imperceptible snarl. Shade, he said, as if the word tasted bitter in his mouth. That is such a derogatory epithet for my kind. Really? I find it rather apt description. Gosh, I can't talk. I'm ruining this. But that's why you should go buy the books and read them for yourselves. So it goes smoothly. And you can do your own voices. And because they're great books. Really? I find it a rather apt description, Ari said, but her curiosity was piqued. What do you call yourselves? Jashar sat up a bit straighter. We are the Aloksul, the favored. We are ancient and immortal. As he was talking, the room suddenly felt warmer, but she chose to ignore it. Where did you come from? Did your kind arrive with the Anu colonists? Hiding in the shadows like rats, ready to infect this world with their diseased presence? But before he could answer, Ari was engulfed in what felt like caustic flames of an inferno. Every cell in her body was on fire, while an atonal current of energy sawed against her nerves like a madman's opus. She was conscious of nothing except for the all-consuming pain. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped, and instead of pain, she felt a strong pulse of power thrum out around her in every direction. After a moment, it was gone, and she was on the floor, panting and covered in sweat. What the hell was that? Opening her eyes, Ari saw that all the furniture had been close to her, had been shoved away in a perfect 3-foot perimeter around her. Jashar was still seated, calm and collected, as though nothing strange had just occurred, but Ari was able to see the fear in his stolen eyes. He knew exactly what just happened, and it worried him immensely. Oh, don't rush to help me, I'm fine, Ari said sarcastically as she sat up on her own, and then scooted back to lean against the side of the Chase lounge. What was that? What just happened to me? She asked, trying to catch her breath and wiping her sweat-soaked hair away from her face. Her skin still felt hot to the touch. He only stared at her for an uncomfortably long moment, before referring back to her original question before the attack. "No, we did not arrive here with the invaders," he said coldly. "This was our world. We were born to it. We were the original men, strong and great. Unlike the pitiful excuses that pass for humans nowadays. The invaders are the ones that made us what we are now." He spat, full of spite and venom. "Ancient and immortal, denied both life and death." "What just happened to me?" Arya asked again. She couldn't understand how the colonists were able to turn them from humans into what they are now. But suddenly going through all that pain for no apparent reason wasn't something to ignore. "You believe that we are evil," he said, ignoring her question once more. "We've seen glaciers advance and recede, changing the landscape in its wake. We've seen mountains erode into canyons, bountiful seas become lifeless deserts. The modern world, as you know it, is built upon the graves of empires. I've seen the mighty civilizations rise and fall to become only one more footnote in the annals of history. We were there for it all, and still we remain. I have seen great men and women rise up to accomplish amazing feats, but are now completely forgotten, erased as though they never existed. A human life is a blink in our existence. Can you still wonder how my kind has lost their empathy? Can you wonder how so many have lost themselves to madness?" He looked at her intently. "Immortality breeds indifference." Ari could, though reluctantly, understand. Individual lives meant nothing to them anymore. They passed by so quickly. How could they possibly care about them? Everything good, like charity and love, cut too deep to hold on to, and had carved them into what they are now. The only things left to them were hedonistic desires. The thought terrified her. Would she eventually become that indifferent and she was able to live out her life? Is that why Kale seemed so callous? We see people take for granted and casually squander the very thing we strive to possess and treasure. To feel, to be alive. I ask you, why are we not deserving? Why must we be denied what others ignorantly waste? Most of the others don't remember what we were before. They've seen too many things, taken on too many others' memories. They think only of now. That's why they are the castes that they are. Because those of us that remember, those of us that refuse to forget, we know that you are not the product of the invaders and their human concubines. We know what you truly are and what you could do for us. They couldn't possibly know that I'm a Fluxi, could they? The others that tried to hold on to their humanity have gone beyond madness in their despair. They no longer seek life and have retreated to endure their existence in the shadows. Nakar and I are the only ones that still retain vessels. What just happened to me? We remember another that was like you, he interrupted. She was different from the other invaders. She was born of the fire dancers, but even as a child she possessed powers they did not. Which of the higher races were the fire dancers? She was kind. She saw us as something of worth, and not just chattel to be used and abused. She loved us and taught us to rise up and be more than we were. Yet true to what we were, she gave us pride. She was only a child, but we revered her, and our tribe flourished under her care. Soon others escaped the yoke of their abusive gods and sought out ours. She welcomed them, and our numbers greatly increased. But their coming was her downfall, for they brought the attention of the other invaders. They were jealous of what she had and what she would ultimately become. Jafar's face became a mask of pure hatred and disdain. so they destroyed her while they still could. Our people raged as we mourned our goddess. Then we gathered the best and strongest of us to avenge her. We were 1,000 strong, but those who did not perish for our cause became what we are now. A symbol from Alvara's drawing flashed into her mind, the symbol of Inanna, a goddess of love, fertility, and war. Made sense to her now. Inanna must have been the Mesopotamian incarnation. Let me try saying that again. Oh no, this is all the water I have left until the morning when I can turn on the spigot and refill my bottles. Better save some. I should have done it today, but I woke up with a migraine and went back to sleep. So most of my day was wasted. Back to the book. Inanna must have been the Mesopotamian incarnation of a colonist that had been a Fluxi, and her death had ultimately caused the creation of the Shades. What just happened to you? Jashar continued, finally getting around answering her question, is the first step in becoming what you truly are. You are beginning what she never had a chance to. You are beginning the transition from child to adult. What? No. I was supposed to have more time. Then it hit her. That was why Jashar had been afraid. His job was to win her over to their side before she hit maturity, before she was too powerful to control. He knew that his time was quickly running out. You remember the colonist children going through maturity? She asked. Before we turned, we learned everything we could about them, how they lived, their weaknesses. Once we learned that their children were powerless and vulnerable, we had our best assassins kill them just as they did our goddess, he said, relishing the ancient memory, ending them before they had the chance to dominate us. Ari cringed at his obvious pleasure at the thought of those innocent children being murdered, but he had information she needed. Do you remember how long the process takes? She asked. How long until I become a monster? It was different for all of them. It could be weeks or merely days. But for one such as you, I do not know. Your power will be so much greater. Perhaps it will take longer. Let's hope so. So, what do you want from me? She asked warily. Nakar sees that the world is primed for another great war. He wants you to help him crush those that will oppose us and make him the supreme leader he believes he should be. What is up with all these world domination schemes? Ari asked in frustration. What's the point of killing everyone and destroying everything only to have to start over with an empty and devastated empire? Does he want to be the king of corpses? Because I've glimpsed into the future, and it is not promising. You must destroy in order to create, he said. It is true, war brings out the worst, but it also brings out the best. There is no triumph without tragedy, no heroes without adversity. The human race has survived plagues and genocides many times before, always to come back twice as strong. The herd must be thinned from time to time, but that's what makes humans great. The more dire the circumstance, the more tenaciously the strong cling to life. They survive. So you want me to help you end the world just to have it be run by mad and indifferent shades? I don't think so. There is no point in keeping my parents alive only to have that be their future. I said that was Nakar's plan for you, he said. He has been in power for too long. He seeks only to rule and be worshipped. He has become short-sighted. World domination is short-sighted? Ari asked, wondering what Jashar could possibly think would top that. He got up to silently move his chair closer to where she sat on the floor. Ari scooted away as far as she dared, wary of being in such close proximity to him. Ignoring the slight, he leaned his forearms on his knees and lowered his voice. If you were to help me overthrow Nakar, I will not use your powers for war. Dissension in the ranks. Interesting. What would you use my powers for then? To restore us to what we were, he said, his eyes completely sincere. Oh, that was not what she had been expecting at all. If we become human once more, there would be no need for any more taking of bodies. We would be able to live and die as nature intended. It was definitely the better option of the two, Ari conceded. But how in the world could she possibly do that for them? She could worry about that later, though, as long as she took down the warmongering Nakar first. With Jashar in her debt, Ari would be in a position to make some demands. If I do this for you, she said, you will leave my parents alone? She tapped the monitor around her left ankle for emphasis. He glanced down, then looked her in the eyes and nodded. If you help me do this, then your parents will be under no threat from us. And you'll stop the whole drug empire you're running here? He hesitated. You don't understand. The money I make from this franchise funded a great deal of the reconstruction after Katrina. I love my city. I do what I must to make it great. And it's a lucrative way to fund your decadent lifestyle. Find a different way, Ari demanded. She may be making deals with a shade, but she was going to turn it into something good. He didn't like it, but he finally capitulated with a curt nod. How do we make this official? Do I sign a contract in blood, or what? She had no idea whether she could trust Jashar. There was no guarantee that he wouldn't renege as soon as Nakar is deposed. I didn't know that was a word that people still used. There was no guarantee that he wouldn't renege as soon as Nakar is deposed. Jashar smirked. A handshake should suffice. There's no need to waste a drop of that precious blood of yours. Well, that's a strange thing to say. But she reached over and held out her hand nonetheless. After they shook on it, Ari asked, how exactly do we overthrow Nakar? It's not like he's going to bow out graciously, and we can't kill him because you guys don't die. He possesses a ring with an ancient seal that grants him dominion over the Luxul. Ari's mind flashed back to Alvaro's drawing again. The lesser seal of Solomon engraved on a signet ring made of iron and brass, given to King Solomon directly from heaven to give him power over demons and evil spirits. You will use your power and speed to take it from him and give it to me, Jashar continued. The others will then be forced to obey me. Seems simple enough. His eyes narrowed as he assessed her. I understand that you are disguised as a human, but how is it that you have the speed of the Golden Ones, but the look of the fire dancers? Aha, so the fire dancers are the Daisen. Why do you call them fire dancers? She asked, not wanting to get into the particulars of her impossible existence. When they fought, they were able to conjure up the fire of their souls to give them power. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly. That's what her uncle Ubram had been doing against the Carno in her memory. The sweeping movements he'd been making were focusing the power of his Shaza, making it visible to anyone. Could I do that? Jashar smirked. You do not know yourself. I am learning more every day, she assured him. How is it that your eyes are clear and your vessel has no signs of decay like the others? Something our goddess taught us, he said cryptically. What does that mean? Humans are a very generous race. They freely give of their souls to one another because they are stronger together. Alone they wither and perish. But what does that have? He held up a hand to quiet her. Our worship gave our goddess strength. Belief and prayers are focused energy. If we are the recipient of such energy, it gives our vessels strength and vitality, he said, motioning to himself. But only for a brief time. Willing sacrifice is what sustains. There is great power in sacrifice. Is that what Cam and Soren did for me? Their belief in me, their willing sacrifice of their energy, it gave me strength. But the tricky part is earning that sacrifice. That is why the lower castes look as they do. They go through so many vessels. Until they can prove that they are worthy to earn such sacrifice, they are relegated to the lesser vessels. There was a knock at the door. Jashar stood up and moved the chair back to its original placement, and then grabbed his cane and opened the door. Yes. In the hall stood a pretty blonde, who was just high enough to still be functional. She looked up at Jashar like he was the Prince of England. Lust was pouring off her, and his black aura was drinking it up. No matter how much Jashar seemed different from the others, at the heart of it, he was still a shade. He wishes to see the girl, the blonde purred. Then she glanced over at Ari, and she was practically smacked in the face with the blonde's jealousy. Calm down, crazy. You can have him. Of course, Jashar said, and then held out his hand towards Ari. Come, it's time for you to meet Nakar. Did Jashar want to go through with the plan now or later? They didn't really go into the details or think up any signals he would give her when it was time. Guess we're just going to wing it then. Ugh. I'm running out of water. I guess I'll go for... My throat's too dry. I don't want to waste the water. I guess I'll have another soda. Since my dogs decided to dump my other one. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'd rather have water right now. But I gotta wait. It's too dark out, and it's getting cold. Ari, still feeling a bit feverish, stood up, expecting to be weakened from the intense heat flash. But she felt strong. Stronger than she ever had before. If this was how people felt when she amped them, no wonder they wanted her around. It felt amazing. Striding barefoot and confident across the room, Ari ignored Jashar's preferred hand and went out the door past his repulsive aura to follow the blonde. She heard Jashar's soft chuckle behind her. Their Bordello decor wasn't limited to her bedroom suite. After glancing into a couple open doors on their way down the hall, she realized the whole upstairs seemed to have the same theme. And according to the sounds coming from behind a closed door, it wasn't just a theme, but in practice as well. Fett kept the corners out of sight, waiting for Jashar to bring the girl down, waiting for the perfect moment. It was only good to be in Nakar's crosshairs if you had something to offer, or you'd risk his irascible wrath. Fett had waited too long and worked too hard to have it all fall apart on him now. The vessel he inhabited was the best he'd had in a very long time. Strong and capable, free of addiction. It had been essential for his purpose, but for some reason it chafed. He told himself that it didn't matter. He could endure the defect, because soon he'd have his pick of prime vessels. The room quieted. their attention drawn towards the door. Whispers traveled through the crowd. She was coming willingly. Jashar has successfully seduced her. His right hand began to twitch uncontrollably. And that was the end of chapter 30. Whoop, whoop. Oh my gosh. I wonder how many chapters we have left. We only have 3 chapters left. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Another fairly long one. I don't know if I'm going to go on to the next chapter tonight or not. I'll debate this in private, I guess. If I don't, I'll see you next time. Well, either way, I'll see you next time, because this is going to be its own video. I don't know what I'm saying. It's getting late. Maybe I should just go back to bed. All right, thank you for joining us for chapter 30. Oh, man. I guess that's it. Have a good night. Peace.